Welcome to Charlie's Toolbox, the only podcast that teaches you how to be the main character in your life. Here you can find all the tools and skills you need to decenter men, center yourself, and feel good about your life. Here's your host, researcher, observer, and marketer, Charlie Taylor.
Hi, Toolies! Welcome back to this week's episode of Charlie's Toolbox. Today we discuss reviving your sparkle. But before we get started, we have some super exciting news. Our storytelling podcast will be launching pretty soon, later in the month. And in July, we have already launched 2 workshops in 1 book. The first workshop is to help you to continue decentering men. It offers 1 self-guided course and 3 worksheets to help you self-reflect and implement these strategies daily. The second workshop is about surrendering to healing and gaining your power back. This is sort of an immersion program, and it consists of 3 weeks of workshops, access to a private group to discuss these challenges, one-on-one calls, and worksheets to work through each topic. Lastly, we have our book. Our book is about navigating workplace politics as a Black woman. The workplace is one of the most vulnerable spaces for Black women. It is where we see some of the most subtle and overt forms of racism and sexism. So it is time to arm ourselves with the tools to be on the offensive and not the defensive. If you want to keep yourself up to date with our latest releases and you want a personalized newsletter to be sent directly to your email, please subscribe to our newsletter on charliestoolbox.com. It's a great place for resources for my podcast. You can download free workshops. You can take our quiz. And you can receive newsletters directly to your email. So let's get started. When we self-reflect, we reflect on moments when we were light, free, unburdened, unaware of trauma, and not concerned by the opinions of others. We remember exploring, like being adventurous, saying yes to things, and walking into rooms with an open heart. And as we reflect, we simultaneously are reminded that something we experienced changed that for us. Either the experience of isolation during COVID or health changes from that or personal experiences, something or someone shifted the energy inside us, that energy that makes us feel great about ourselves, great about our life, great about our environment. It shifted that energy, and the magic that we were so intimate with feels extremely distant. And the sad part about that is we really can't explain why. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the sparkle that lives within, what happens once it feels lost, and how to retrieve it and ensure it stays with you forever. So the sparkle that lives deep in our core is our essence. It is what makes you you. It is what tingles inside when you've had a really great night and you look at your life and say, wow, this is my life. It is what shows up when we walk into a room and automatically connect with someone without real effort. It is what shows up when you are in a state of flow. It shows itself when we are deeply pleased with ourselves, when we accept ourselves for who we are and are curious about life. When the sparkle is lost, you feel disconnected without any explanation on why. You don't feel inspired to seek, to try and explore. Instead, you find yourself in the house with excuses for not wanting to go out. You find yourself hopeless, dreamless, and stuck. And no matter how much you push for change, that sparkle inside refuses to show up. So what do you do when you are desperately trying to reach that feeling again, and you really, 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 truly want to regain it? Well, I have some tips for you. The first is surrender to your feelings. Surrender to it all. And one thing I notice is that when people say surrender, it's always kind of, to me, unclear as to what that means. So I'm going to tell you what surrendering means to me. When I say surrender, I'm talking about releasing the urge to fight or solve this feeling. And the reason why it's needed is because sometimes when we push and fight for a resolution, we unintentionally make the problem bigger. And I'll give an example. If I am constantly seeking happiness, I will unintentionally focus on how unhappy I am, making the unhappiness bigger than what it truly is, because my want and will to desperately move away from that is making this problem larger than what it is. The same can be applied to having a sparkle versus not having one. If I constantly seek to regain that sparkle, I will unintentionally highlight how painful it is to be without it. I'll hyper focus on that feeling and try to use its absence as a motivating factor. And unfortunately, all that does is make the lack bigger than what it is. So the solution is to surrender, to acknowledge its absence, and deeply know that without your constant need to fix, to solve, to resolve, that the solution will reveal itself to you. Sometimes our sparkle is lost because we have emotions that we need to process and work through. For example, I know that my sparkle was personally gone because I didn't acknowledge my life-changing moments. I broke up with someone. I had a friendship breakup. I had my best friend move to another state, and I had my job cut due to budgeting issues. So I moved and found another job. All these moments were life-changing, but I didn't acknowledge them as such. I just moved forward and moved on without really giving it any thought. And sometimes that's very helpful. Sometimes you do need to just shrug things off and move forward. And sometimes you need to sit down and acknowledge the gravity of your life events and take time to feel all of it without managing those feelings and categorizing them as good or bad, right or wrong. And that is what sometimes you need to regain your sparkle, is to just allow yourself to be without any criticism and without categorizing them. Just let them be. Be clear about it. Accept them for what they are. And remember that whatever you feel is the right answer. Because that's what you feel. And in order to live a better life, in order to feel good about yourself, in order to feel good about life, you have to allow that feeling to be and create solutions from that experience. My last tip for generating your sparkle is to just return to what excited you as a kid and a teenager. When you were a kid, when you were a child, you had unlimited amounts of sparkle. Everything was amazing. Everything was a ooh and an ah, and you touched everything because you wanted to understand it. You needed to know. And so you must return to that state. Return to the hobbies that you love doing, like coloring, reading, being outside, or playing sports. Return to the kid who said yes to things instead of convincing themselves out of everything because of fear. Return to the baby who was enamored by the mundane, who saw happiness in sun rays and flowers and puppies. Be curious and ask why like a child. Say hi to people like children do. Give hugs and say I love you like children do. Take all this adult angst and shift that energy into childlike wonder. And I promise you that your sparkle will show up, because the actions and the mindset of kids is what generate sparkle. In summary, your sparkle can be regenerated by the following: surrendering. Stop fighting against it. Just allow it. Allow it to clash over you like a wave and release it. Number 2, process your emotions. Sometimes your sparkle is just stifled by unprocessed emotions. Sometimes you need to move those things out the way in order to feel that essence, that energy, that thing in your gut that says, wow, life is worth living. And number 3, just return to a childlike state. Do these things that remind you of what it felt like to be a child. So, on that note, you all take care and let me know what you think. Bye. Damn.
For show notes, be sure to check out charliestoolbox.com. Follow Charlie on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Charlie's Toolbox. Thanks again for listening to Charlie's Toolbox.